pena me da y lo que más siento yo. Todos mandan en mi casa, pero menos mando yo. Lo que más pena me da y lo que más siento yo. Todos mandan en mi casa, pero menos mando yo. Este beso no es para mí, que de lejos lo conocí. Este beso no es para mí, que de lejos lo conocí.
Hi, my name is Tucker Rosemeyer, and I've healed myself from drug addiction, alcoholism, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety.
Hi, my name is Iboga and welcome to our Path to Healing. Joining us today is Tucker Rosemeyer from Utica, New York. After decades of dealing with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and several addictions, Tucker decided to face his issues with the most unconventional methods. Here's his story of healing.
I'm 44 years old, and so throughout my years of life, I've experienced physical abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, drug addiction, dealing with alcohol, mental issues, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, many things like that. Finally, in the fall of 2017, I decided that I wanted to try a different path for healing and use ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. So I booked a retreat at Rhythmia in Costa Rica, like yourself, and my path started there. Mm-hmm. At Rhythmia.
And so you were faced with, you said, traumas. Were you abused as a child by your both parents?
As a child, I grew up in a very violent household. Mm-hmm. So there was domestic abuse from my dad to my mom, and then it carried over into my life. Mm-hmm. When I was born. So growing up, yes, there was physical abuse, there was mental abuse going on from both parents at times. I don't want to paint a picture like my childhood was, absolutely terrible, because that's not the case. But there was things that I saw and was subjected to that I am not doing with my own kids.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you were dealing with drug addiction before, with cocaine addiction.
Cocaine, drinking. I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and this is pretty rampant, the use of cocaine and alcohol. So, by getting involved in the restaurant industry, this is, quite the norm.
Yep.
So for, the last 15 years, this was, part of my, somewhat daily regime, as far as, working a 12-hour shift and then using, drugs to get up, and then drugs to come down. You go up with, cocaine, drink some alcohol, and then when it's time to go home, you take some Xanax or Valium. Mm-hmm. So this had become quite the norm for me, and so this increased my issues with depression and anxiety, because you're constantly going up and down, and your brain chemicals are all messed up from that and other things. I had got a divorce 6 years ago. I was struggling with the fact that with the divorce, and turning to using drugs and alcohol to stifle my feelings was another reason to use. So I decided, I had heard of ayahuasca in 2012, and I had done research on it, and finally, as a last-ditch effort, as a last resort, I chose to go and use ayahuasca. With anybody that's using any type of substances, you're not completely stable all the time. Whether you're used around my family, you know. So it was always like after I would get out of work, I'd go home, go to bed, and then everybody would be sleeping by the time I got home. But the problem was that I wasn't going home after work. I was going, you know, to the bar or whatever, and so that put a stress on my marriage, and you know, ultimately was one of the main causes of the demise of that marriage. So that was a factor for sure.
Did you have any positive effects immediately, or did you have to do repeated amounts of plant medicine to get the addiction out of you?
Yeah, addiction is a lifelong. It is a lifelong process dealing with addiction. I believe, at least so far in my life, I used ayahuasca initially in plant medicine, and coming back, you know, as soon as we're done with an ayahuasca ceremony on Friday, I was basically home on Monday, so there's only a couple days of integration before I came back to my regular ordinary life, and I started to fall back into some of the same habits already. You know, so after 2 weeks of being in Costa Rica and starting to do some of the same habits after I had done all this work with ayahuasca in Costa Rica, I decided to go to Peru and continue my journey with plant medicine, ayahuasca, and using San Pedro down there as well. Kind of the same thing, you know, going deeper, digging deeper, bringing up more issues, more fears. You know, the thing for me on my plant medicine journey was, you know, bringing up my worst fears. You know, I would see a lot of the worst possible scenarios that my mind could create, and I actually believed some of them in the journeys that these were true, when basically they were, you know, a metaphor or abstract. You know, ayahuasca can be abstract. This was not something that I was familiar with when, you know, initially I went to use the medicine. You know, I thought it was more straightforward, but it can go either way. It can give you truth or it can give you abstract. So that's very important to know.
I see. Then after that, you mentioned you also went on and you did Iboga, was it?
So after I went to Peru, I came home, and a lot of the same issues started popping up again, as far as, you know, drinking a little bit, slipping and using cocaine again. And
you weren't using it as much.
No, it cut my addiction out by probably 80%. You know, so my use was cut by 80%. You know, still, I was still wanting to go out. Basically, I wanted to go out and talk about my ayahuasca. I would have a few drinks, and then I would end up doing it like that. So it's important to, obviously, you know, if you're trying to stop drinking, not go out to the bar. So I went on to use Iboga because I had heard some stories about Iboga being, you know, the godfather of plant medicine and completely rewiring your brain with addiction, with so many issues, that it's a total healing plant. It's
like
actually
a reset button, kind of?
Like the reset button, absolutely. And that was exactly my experience when I used Iboga. I did 2 ceremonies of Iboga. I felt like $1 million. You know, everything. I compassion, anything, any way that you would want to feel about yourself, self-love, compassion, forgiveness, peace of mind. That's how I felt after using Iboga only twice. I stayed and used Iboga 2 more times to get initiated into the Bwiti tribe. This is the tribe that brought the medicine to the Western Hemisphere. And so I went and used Iboga more because I had such a reverence for this medicine, and I wanted to be part of this tribe. Those 2 journeys were a little bit tougher than my first 2, and I had lost some of that good feeling from the first 2 ceremonies, but I still felt really good. Anytime I talked about Iboga, anytime I talked about plant medicine, it brought back these good feelings. So, you know, with Iboga, it has Ibogaine in it. Ibogaine is the main alkaloid in Iboga, and Ibogaine is shown to stay in your system longer, and its metabolites, its remnants, whatever it breaks down to, works in the brain on a neuroplastic level to where it allows you to be happier for longer. Eventually that medicine wears out of your system and you're left with your regular brain chemistry. And if you haven't made any changes, if I haven't made any changes in lifestyle, if I'm still working the same job with the same girl doing the same things, then eventually, you know, these habits will start to
reappear, possibly?
Reappear.
So a lot has to do with like the integration process and how you
Lifestyle change.
your like when we had our experiences. Like the first half is the experience of doing either ayahuasca or iboga. The other half is you doing the work. Right?
Correct.
So, and you've made those changes, would you say?
It's a continuing process.
Yeah.
You know, I own my own business, so it wasn't like that I could close the business overnight and just, you know, stop everything. I have also two kids, you know, and I have a lifestyle and bills, so I need to make this money. So, you know, it's been a process of trying to figure out how I can incorporate change while at the same time pay my bills, and do all that. You know, some people can just drop it like that, you know, but that's not my case.
I see.
After being flat broke from his addictions and depression, Tucker was determined to start again after the breakdown of his marriage and his relationship with his father, who was his business partner at the time. He now runs a successful pizzeria in the city of Utica in central New York State called Slice Pizzeria, where he started from the ground up after living on practically no money. His creative spirit and devotion to the art of making great tasting pizza, amazing wings, and beautiful cheesecakes, along with Tucker's creativity and resourcefulness, is the reason why he is successful today in business. He also applied the same level of courage, tenacity, and devotion to himself, which made him find his path to healing.
For me is to be conscious of and observe my own feelings, you know, stepping back, which has been, you know, one of the main things. What I learned on Iboga was to just observe the mind and listen to the mind, because and separate ourselves from our own mind. And you know, other thought leaders will talk about this, separating yourself from your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And so this is something that I firmly believe and that I've been practicing, you know, to the best of my ability. And sometimes the mind is so convincing with giving you a problem, and it'll make this, you know, you start off with a little spark and the next thing you know, the whole house is on fire, as far as, you know, with the mind. And so for me, it's been helpful to observe my thoughts, try and replace them with healthy thoughts, and the use of meditation and prayer, and, you know, using nature and friends, you know, and reaching out. This has been essential to me, is the network of that. The plant medicine is one thing, but the people that you meet when doing the plant medicine, you establish a bond with these other people, like you and I have now, is to where they become your family. They become closer than some of your closest relatives and friends that you've known your entire life.
Yeah, because we kind of saw your deepest, darkest stuff.
You're there, you know, puking and shitting in front of everybody, and, you know, you're not embarrassed in the least bit. And then you wake up and you go eat and you spend time with each other, and it's a bonding experience. So these bonds have really helped carry me through. They helped, you know, other people love me. You know, as far as integration of the plant medicine for me goes, I've really been lucky with the people that I've met through these retreats, because the network that I have, we're constantly texting, we're constantly talking, messaging, posting on social media, sharing, as well as, you know, finding time to, you know, people flying in to hang out, or meeting me driving places to see these people, because it really brings the medicine back alive. And you know, when I refer to medicine, it's like basically this life-giving force, the medicine of friendship, the medicine of love, the medicine of just living. And so for me, between meditation, taking trips, traveling has been great medicine for me. You know, obviously not everybody can afford to go to Colombia or to Peru or to Costa Rica, but even a small trip to the beach like we took today, or a little trip, you know, 200 miles or whatever, those are the things that have kept me going, that have given me strength in times of, you know, when I start to get down on myself again. I was fighting my mind with my mind. I'm trying to straighten my mind out by using my mind and my brain, and I was failing miserably. I had bought this brain, you know, I had thought, like, I have a problem with the neurotransmitters in my brain, so I bought this brain stimulator, it's called. It was designed by 2 NASA scientists. The military was using it, so I bought this brain stimulator. It cost around $800. And so I've been using it, and, I put it on the highest setting, and I was using it the recommended amount of time, even a little bit more, and I really wasn't seeing any results. And then, I was like, a thing came to me where what's causing my problems is my thoughts. When I have a thought, and I was watching either Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden where they said, you have a thought, and then it creates a feeling, and then you start to, getting this pattern of thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling. Next thing you know, it's subconsciously happening. And so for me, I had to say, wow, it's not the neurotransmitters in my mind that are causing me to feel this way. It's my thoughts that are causing me to feel this way. How can I change my thoughts? What could I do to not keep obsessing over the same issues that I have been? Because I had already conquered these issues on Iboga. Like, I had this long trip where the mind just got completely exhausted and there was no thought. There was nothing at all. So what I came up with is like, then I'm not going to use my mind. I'm going to feel from my heart. What does my heart feel? And it may sound a little quirky, like your mind, how do you think with your heart? But what you feel from your heart, you feel love from your heart. You don't feel hate from your heart, you feel hate from your mind. You feel happiness comes from here. Now, the things like driving a new car or getting a gold ring, those things are basically in the mind. They're making your mind happy, but they're not giving you peace of heart. You know what I mean? They're not satisfying. You're not going to take these things into the next world with you. So, but living from the heart was the precipice for me as far as switching over. I went from being depressed on a couch on a Saturday to where I had to call into work because I was so I worked on a Friday. I worked a 12-hour shift on a Friday. Went out and had some drinks, and I was so depressed on the couch on Saturday. And immediately when I started doing this heart meditation, and I started feeling from the heart and thinking from the heart, I felt it. It was a shift. It was a physical and mental and spiritual shift to where on this following Sunday, the next day, I was jumping off a 40-foot waterfall and having a good time with my kids, where normally I would have been ordering takeout Chinese and laying on the couch while the kids just sat around and watched TV. I took them the next day to this place out in the country. We went in the waterfall. We had a great time, and it lasted. That's how quick that heart meditation can change things around, and it did for me.
So this is not part of your regular maintenance
Now I
routine.
use this on a regular routine. Now I'm waking up in the morning, instead of going on the phone, I'm doing my breathing and feeling from the heart, not just thinking. Because then you get back in your mind, you can start thinking instead of feeling. And this is the difference, is feeling from the heart. I've been on medication for many years. I was on medication for many years, on and off. I've tried everything, Prozac, Effexor, Paxil, you name it, I was on it. And, I was on Xanax for 5 years. And the way, so I came off the psychotropic meds on my own, just went cold turkey, and I basically had to lay on the couch for a month straight because of the withdrawals from it. But I couldn't get off the Xanax because, number one, it works really good. But you get physical addictions to it. And the way I beat that, because I wanted to go to arrhythmia, I was like, I need to be off this Xanax if I'm going to go to arrhythmia. So I was starting to get a little nervous.
That's the plant medicine.
Plant medicine, the Life and Transmission Center. And I discovered indigenous to my area in New York is the black walnut tree. They call them butternuts around here. And they were just scattered. Normally they're just scattered all over the yard. They were scattered all over my friend's yard. And I said, well, what are you doing with those? So, well, you can eat them. This is in late September. I said, oh. I said, well, let me try one. So I ate a black walnut nut. You had to break the hull on it, eat it. And immediately I could feel like a physiological difference. I was like, oh, what is this? So I thought these would be. I was like, oh man, look at the squirrels! Look how much energy the squirrels got. They're eating these nuts all year round. They're living. So I was like, this has got to be a superfood. My grandmother's got cancer, so I took the nuts home with me, Well, little did I know, that morning somehow I had forgot to take in my Xanax. Normally, by within a couple hours of missing my dose of the Xanax, I would be all nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason that night, I had no issues. And I was like, holy shit, I forgot to take my Xanax. I ate the nut.
Did you investigate the
Is this
nut?
possible? So I said, I better take one because you can go into seizures from breaking off.
Sure.
So that night, I kept the nuts here. I didn't bring them to my grandmother. I kept the nuts here, and I started researching on black walnuts. And what turns out is the black walnuts are a superfood. They're higher in omega-3s than salmon oil.
Mm-hmm.
They're a superfood that the black walnut is shaped like a brain. It's brain food. So immediately, 6 in the morning, I'm out on the blacktop, and I'm cracking the nuts open. I was eating about 2 or 3 black walnuts a day, and within a week, I was able to cut out Xanax completely, and I haven't turned back to the Xanax at all, just by using the black walnuts.
Right now you're drug free.
I'm drug free.
Yeah, so no prescription medication.
These days I can have a beer with dinner, and I'm not interested in getting drunk. I wouldn't want to get, I've had a couple drinks and I start to feel the alcohol buzz, and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. But can I have a beer with dinner or a drink socially? I do now. That goes against the whole AA thing, but I enjoy it. I'm not looking to go out and get drunk and do all these things. My life is
Well, it's just
different.
like everything in moderation, right?
If you can moderate some, for a point in my life, I could never moderate. But now, I'm okay with that.
So, what's new realizations did you discover about yourself, like going through your deeper connection with
I've continued
your
to use.
journey?
I've continued to use ayahuasca, maybe once a month, once every 2 months, since the beginning. And I find that I just love being around the medicine. I love, the tradition of it. I love the practice. I love everything about it, except I get afraid when I go to drink it, because, you're rolling the dice with whatever kind of journey you might get. But for me, I will continue to use plant medicine along my journey. I will continue to meditate. I will continue to clean up my diet more, all these things, and I'm a lot calmer. Certain things don't matter to me anymore. I see life for what it is. It's not about how much money you can amass. It's not about, the car you're driving or the girl on your arm. That's not
that's
what
all
life's
nice,
about.
but it's not all about.
That's not what it's about. That
Sure.
That doesn't. These things never made me happy. So while I can appreciate everything that I have, I realize that that's not what life is about. Life is about relationships with people. For me, from my perspective, it's about relationships and love.
So now have some of your relationships improved after all this work you've done on
I
yourself?
know, yeah, for sure. My kids say I'm a better father. I'm a better ex-husband. I'm probably more generous. I'm very relaxed. Everybody sees the difference in me since I've started this journey of plant medicine and inner healing.
That's a good sign that other people around you are noticing that.
At the same time, I'm not allowing people to walk all over. Like, I'm on a path now, and the number one thing is for me to be healthy and happy, because without me being healthy and happy, then if I'm unhappy, my negative energy is going to transfer to other people, and that's going to affect them.
Mm-hmm.
So by having a good vibration, a high vibration, other people can feel better as well.
Yeah. Obviously, you protect yourself from the energy vampires as well, whereas before you might have gone aggressive and been.
I am not, certain people I had to cut out of my life, and this is part of it. People that aren't serving your higher purpose, and if your higher purpose is not selfish, it's self-preservation. That's the difference. You have to take care of yourself first. I give the analogy of when you're on a plane, they tell you put the oxygen mask on you before you help anybody else. If you don't put it on yourself, you're going to suffocate and you can't help anybody else.
Sure.
So put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you can help others.
It's a good analogy. Yeah, a very good analogy. So now, how are you helping others with your experiences? And are you spreading the word with regards to your
The first thing in my first ayahuasca
Some people are a bit
ceremony-
shy about telling about their story.
Yeah, some people are shy, and I respect that, you know, because whether their line of work doesn't allow them to talk openly about, you know, the medicines or doing that they're doing. Personally, you know, I'm vocal. I've been one of the most vocal people about my past, what I'm doing for healing, and you know, whatever I'm doing, I'm vocal about it. You know, because there's people suffering. So I've really put myself out there a lot, and I've got some backlash over it. I've went on the radio. I've been on podcasts. And, you know, I got friends coming up to me like, "Hey, man, why are you putting yourself out there like that?" And I said, "Well, I don't really care what people think anymore. You know, this is the real me. I'm going to be honest about it. You know, this is my path to healing. If anybody else has gone through the same issues and they could learn something from me, then my job is done.
Mm-hmm.
Then my job is done. How will I be remembered? For making a great pizza, or this guy that helped many people heal? You know, and that's the ultimate. You know, is to help somebody."
Of course, yeah. I mean, I experienced similar types of comments as well, where say, well, don't tell anybody else. People will think you're crazy or something. But I'm like, no way. The world has to know about.
If this is crazy, then I don't want to be sane. You know.
You know, yeah, exactly. And to not inform the world about how you've transformed yourself to make yourself better, I think it's. I think you're doing a disservice to the world by not sharing this. That's why we're here today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Bueno.
Bueno. Claro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a wonderful journey that we've been on, despite all its bumps and bruises and its difficulties. But I can attest to the changes I've seen in myself, and seeing other people's journeys right in front of my eyes and how they've transformed their lives. It's to others it seems like it's a miracle, but
And
it's
even
a
to
lot
watch
of
people
work.
dip and then come back.
Yeah.
You know, because it could be very easy just to go back into a depression, but to go into depression and then come out of it, fighting and never giving up.
Yeah. And right now you're not even on any meds anymore.
No
and,
meds. No meds.
Yeah. And your diet's improving too.
My diet's improving. I'm more on an even keel. You know, because it's, you know, when you come out of a plant medicine journey, it's a peak experience. So you're up here. And it's hard to maintain that level of, you know, energy the whole time. So I'd rather just be on an even keel and relaxed and rather than, you know, running around.
Well, life is about balance, right?
Balance,
and,
for sure.
I mean, that is wonderful to have, that high experience as well.
For sure.
But the thing is, even the journeys themselves have their deepest, darkest lows as well, that you're really suffering. But the high really makes up for those lows. And coming out of it, it's like, you're like, you know, I can't believe I went through that, but you're very grateful for going through that. But I believe, you know, your work for keeping yourself balanced is the right path. Whereas, like, sometimes some people just give in and they don't do the work. They just say, okay, well, you know what, I did this plant medicine, or any other modality, could be whatever, even maybe meditating, but they don't do the changes that necessary. You can be enlightened about yourself, but if you don't make the change.
Knowing is not incorporating.
Yes.
So incorporating what you know is the most important thing.
Yeah. Our path to healing is the most important, is incorporating all that.
And you can only do it in the present moment.
Yeah.
1 second at a time.
Yeah.
Right now. That's all there is. So for now, I'm good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love you, brother.
Love you too, buddy.
Yeah. This is our path to healing with Tucker Rosemeyer, and thank you, world, for watching with us today. Bravo.
Bueno,